I have, for the last 6 years, been in a lot of places in the name of the WRTPC Party Caucus. These folks that you don't get to see here have given me great opportunities, and I've met some very important people, some very relevant people. In my lifetime, I've had good opportunity. My wife just told me to move over because I was blocking your view.
No, you're good.
Okay. I've had good opportunity to meet some good people, and I've had wonderful things happen to me in my life. Meeting Paul Vallely is one of those things that rises right among all the important ones.
Thank you.
I got to tell you, we had him come to the Freedom Summit, and in my introduction to you for Paul, this is Major General Paul Vallely. I could give you a lot of things that he's done over the period of his career, but I'm going to say to you the one thing that impressed me most. When he retired, he was second in command of the Pacific, whole Pacific Fleet, was it? Or
U.S. Army Pacific. Yes.
U.S. Army Pacific. He has a lot of credentials, folks, but what I'm getting ready to tell you now trumps all of that. When I first met him, he talked about being in Syria. I went online and I saw some things, what he was talking about. He was helping the Free Syria Army. He was trying to help those Christians in Syria retake their government from Assad, who was a pretty bad player, it still is. Well, this was pre-Benghazi, but it was in the time relevancy of that. But he was having such success that Al-Qaeda at that time, which has turned into ISIS, put a fatwa on his head. How many folks know what a fatwa is? It's not a good thing. And Paul was so effective that when this president and this Secretary of State, or Hillary Clinton was a Secretary of State, decided not to follow through with some things, Paul had to vacate. And he had to vacate pretty quickly. With the fatwa on his head, and not getting the proper support from our country, Paul had to exit through cornfields and wheat fields, and back people's yards. He had to climb fences to get out of that country, go through Turkey. The thing that I'm going to tell you now, what impressed me about Paul Vallely, is that at that time, he didn't know it then, but he sustained a double hernia. Being the warrior that he is, he followed through anyway. And he came to our Freedom Summit. This is what impressed me when I give you all this introduction to Paul Vallely. He had just had a double hernia surgery, and he still came to that Freedom Summit, and he still presented things that we needed to hear because he loves America. Now, as I got ready to introduce him, I was sitting next to him up in Lansing, and he whispered over to me, Dennis, he said, Dennis, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish or continue this. I'm hurting really bad. I didn't tell anybody that at the time. But just like the trooper he has always been for our country, he got up and he made his presentation, and it made a difference. I carried his satchel, his attaché case. I was his attaché. I carried it around for him, and I became friends with this man. And I can truly, right now, as I introduce to you Major General Paul Vallely, a friend of mine. Give Paul a good welcome.
Very much, Dennis. It's such a pleasure to come to Michigan, and I have many, many ties to Michigan. Back when my father was a partner in Star Granite Works down by the old Detroit airport, and I used to go to Michigan quite a bit. Matter of fact, when I was applying out of high school for colleges, I applied to Michigan in aeronautical engineering and Penn State University in aeronautical engineering. It's hard to say anymore. And I was accepted at both, and I accepted my nomination to West Point in 1957. So my ties back to Michigan are very great. I never lived in Grosse Pointe at the time. I never uncle with Ford Motor Company in Dearborn. Of course, Dearborn's changed quite a bit since then, as I understand. But I love everybody in Michigan, and I went up to a very close classmate of mine up in Boyne City and Lake Charlotte. So I know that area very well. And my uncle actually founded the mystery spot up in St. Ignace. So my ties go back to Michigan, have a lot of great memories. But let me start off tonight by saying, America is a national calamity. We're at a crossroads in America that we haven't seen before. And so that's why it's important for all of America to stand up, be counted, and tell America what we really feel. It's all I've done in Trump storm. That's why I was getting such a great response. I think they look Alabama, some 40,000 people. We need people to stand up and tell it like it is, speak from the heart, and point out that America is in trouble, and we need to reorganize. We need to put strong political people in office that will stand up for the Constitution, for the Republic, and we can look at the threats against America, which are great, not only the border, but look at Russia, look at Iran, which I just heard on today. Iran already has nuclear weapons, and that should be out over the weekend. But we look at the far reaches of the Orient, we look at China and their progression into the very strong Air Force and Navy. But all of these nations are not friends of America. Russia, Iran, China, and they want to see America basically become such a subservient power. And of course, our president self-doing that. So that's sort of an overview. But I ask all of you to stand up as Americans, do what you can, and to help us get back to where we should be in America. That's as key as this republic as a leader in the world, a leader among people, and particularly for our grandchildren and our children. We cannot let America go down. We have to resurrect, we have to recover, and we have to be strong to the future. Well, anyhow, that's sort of my overview of where we're at now.
Okay, Paul, you can go anywhere you want with whatever subjects you want, but you emailed me and told me that you had some news that you were going to ask me to save until tonight, and I talked to folks about that. They're very anxious to hear what it was, and I told them that it's not great news. It's very serious stuff. So if you wanted to go ahead and break that news, I think it's going to be all over the network as soon as it gets exposed and digested, because it has to do with everything that we are talking about tonight. Go ahead and tell us that news, Paul.
Well, I think it's our release today. I was invited back to the Stop Iran rally in Times Square 3 weeks ago with 20 other speakers, including my good friend Alan West. And really what we said, we've got to stop this Iran deal because it's uniquely a very mythological type thing. It's an Obama trying to establish his legacy. And John Kerry, who of course I call Lurch, he's even dumber than I thought he was. When we go back to Vietnam and the phony representation he had, becoming very anti-military, anti-Vietnam in that day. But that's a whole different story. But the key is that Iran wants to become the hegemonic power, not only in the Middle East, but to spread international terrorism and what we call the caliphate or Sharia law around the world. And so they basically been so influential in the Middle East. When you look at the support of Assad in Syria, they look at the support of what's going on in Yemen, and it's forced the Middle East powers to form a new legion of the United Arab Emirates, the Saudis, Egypt, Jordan, and Kuwait. And that has come about because the United States, because of its lavish leadership by Obama, was created a vacuum over there. And so they realize that they're going to stabilize the Middle East, they've got to do it in the unify ever against this ISIS as well as Iran. So you'll see my article out today, the nuclear weapons are already in the possession of Iran. And this has come about because of the support of Russia and North Korea. And what has happened, when you break down what nuclear capability is, it's the launch system, it's the missile system, it's the command and control guidance system, it's the warhead. And Iran has been very smart at having Russia basically and North Korea do all the testing. So that's why they have a nuclear capability. So I think you'll appreciate the article. And hopefully we'll get wide distribution to say that this whole Iran deal, bomb and carrier trying to do is really a new point because they already have nuclear capability.
Yeah, and that news about Iran already having a nuclear weapon is relevant to the fact what we've been talking about. Our subject matter tonight, Paul, was the relocation of refugees, Islamic mostly, and we have to be getting some sleepers. If Iran now has the nuclear capability, it's very serious. It complicates this issue even more. And the thing that I want to mention to folks too, you will recall that I had a conversation with you, and we had you scheduled to come here on a pushback to Governor Snyder's welcoming the Islamic Association of North America, and he was welcoming them here. Now, you were willing to come, and to your credit, there was a health issue that dissuaded you, and it made it easy enough for me to decide to cancel that. And I think it was a mistake on my part, but the whole Republican Party believed that with you coming, because they didn't know at that time that you couldn't come because of a health issue. That was very late in the game that we found out about that. They believed that that could have cost Rick Snyder the governorship. And I lost sleep at night over that, Paul. But I was going to do it, but we canceled it when you couldn't come, and the consequence now of that has been this refugee relocating program, because what we haven't done is educated people since that point. We haven't educated people. Now, Dick Manasari is doing this program, and Gary Kubiak are going around the state of Michigan talking about this relocation project. And it's good stuff. We should have been doing that, to my fault. I wish that I had never canceled that, but I did. We would have had a Democrat governor who would have funded, well, we do fund Planned Parenthood abortionists. He would have been in Lansing. So I can say for that reason I feel good about not having that rally, because I too believe that had you come, that rally would have affected the governor's race. It was 1 week before. So do you want to have any comment about our governor welcoming radical Islam? They were unindicted co-conspirators with CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood. The Islamic Association in North America was unindicted co-conspirators. They laundered $12 million to radical Islam, and that $12 million provided weaponry to kill our troops over there and bring some of them home different because they went to war in our name. Paul, go ahead. Comment a little bit on that rally we didn't have.
Well, I'm sorry we couldn't put it together. I had two serious bacterial infections that were very difficult to recover from. But from the standpoint of the politics in Michigan and what they're going to, even advance what's going on in Dearborn with a lot of refugees resettling in America, and my trips over, I've been over the Middle East 5 times in the last 3 years, probably more than many of our leaders have. But I can tell you there's a lot of good Middle East people. There's a lot of good Muslims that don't follow going to the mosque and follow radical Islam. But the problem is in this resettlement thing, which we have going on in Idaho, for example, that they're not vetting out a lot of these people. And if you don't vet these people, we come in and become citizens of the United States properly. Then we're asking for a lot of infiltration, a lot of support of mosques that we see in Dearborn, for example, that are agents for recruiting radical Islamists. The mullahs sort of follow what comes out of Medina and Mecca when they preach the radical Islamic actions that need to be taken. And believe me, the Muslim Brotherhood is very well funded. And of course, they support what's going on in Dearborn, what's going on in Birmingham, outside of London. Look at what's going on in the Middle East today. We look at a situation that happened on a train from Amsterdam to Paris today, and we had a radical Moroccan Islamist open up AK-47. Thank God there were two U.S. Marines on that train that subdued this guy, and they are truly heroes for example. But let's not be so naive in Michigan to think that they lost with the First Amendment rights and the practice of religion or anything but the Trojan horses for radical Islam, Wahhabi Islam. And so don't tolerate it, Michigan. You've got to put a stop to it. And if they're preaching hate of America and they're not assimilating in America and Dearborn or other places, then you've got to take action against them because they're not being good Americans. I was sitting next to George Pataki in New York 3 weeks ago when we did the stop for Times Square where we had thousands turn up. And I told George, I said, George, when you get up there to talk, he was speaking before I am, say you're an American first. Say you're an American before you're a Republican or a Democrat. And the American people love it. And by the way, George got up there and he said, I'm an American before anybody else. And that's one of the things we have from Stand Up America. You can go to our website, standupamericaus.org, and you'll see the American Project off there, in detail what we say needs to be done to restore Republican America. And that is to be an American before you're anything else. Even Donald Trump and everybody were trying to say, get up there and say you're an American before you're anything else. When I was in Egypt, last year with General Al-Sisi, he pointed out to me and said, you know, we're Egyptians before we're anything else. And that struck a note with me, and I went back and then reinforced this whole thing of being an American first. General Al-Sisi in Egypt gets it. He understands it. It's like such a good leader over there. And that's sort of, again, a little subset of the overview, but hopefully we'll get something to talk about.
Yeah. Well, we want to do a little bit of question and answers. I know you told me that you have family in and you don't want to take too much time, but maybe we can do maybe 4 or 5 questions from different folks.
Sure.
And, we'll take the mic around. Oh, okay. I'm being...
I don't have all the answers, Dennis. I just have a opinion from a uneducated so.
Okay, if you have a question for General Vallely, please come forward because we're not going to take the hand mic around. So come forward right here, and so we're not having a lot of takers right now, Paul. We're totally absorbed. We're totally absorbed with your patriotism and many people like you, Paul, that do things every day that don't get a lot of notice. Folks are amazed at what they're hearing from you. This is Gary Kubiak. He has a question for you.
Yes, General, you say Iran does have the nuclear weapon right now. When do you think they might hold that over somebody's head as an act of terrorism and as an act of trying to get them to do what they want? What country or what kind of extortion would they use on that?
Well, I would say somewhere in the next 60 days, once Obama signs this deal with Iran, I think they're going to go forward and say we've got the green light. And I think we'll see more actions and activity by the Iranian forces over there to mount up their efforts against Israel, particularly through Hezbollah, which occupies all of southern Lebanon, by the way, and through Hamas, which is in Gaza, primarily. So I think you'll see a lot of activity in the next 60 days based on that. Plus, you know, they're going to get $150 billion back into the bank accounts that are on, and that's what they're going to use that for. So I think you'll enjoy the article that we come out with today, which will be publicized within the next 48 hours, that you'll see our rationale for Iran being a nuclear capability nation right now, and don't be fooled by what Iran and Kerry just bought into.
Okay, here's another question.
General, I agree with your statement. I am an American, and I'm proud to say that I too am an American. I'm a Christian and American both.
That was a comment. We need to proclaim the Christian aspect of this country, because I've been reading a lot about the Founding Fathers and about how Christianity was inscribed in the very foundations of this country. And this president, who says that we are no longer Christians, and he is no longer a Christian nation, he said that, he is facilitating that with this refugee relocation. He's trying to change the population in the country to facilitate the very thing that he said. Here we have another question.
General Vallely, Joe Mariani. I had the honor of also meeting you at the Freedom Summit with Dennis, and I must say it was quite an honor. And I was just wondering, along with Iran having a nuclear weapon, how were you able to determine that, and in what capacity do they have such a weapon? And along those same lines, where would you say North Korea is in their nuclear capability?
Yeah, great question. It's all tied together in a couple that we call the Russian, China, North Korean support of Iran. Every test that North Korea has done with the Shahab missiles and the launch capability, as well as the detonation of a nuclear weapon, North Korea solidly has that. So every time North Korea has had a launch or an activity in the nuclear weapon development program, Iran's always had people over there, PhDs, doctors, military, learning and taking that technical information and applying it to their nuclear program. The same thing with Russia, who really has supported Iran in the nuclear development program for 20 years now, has provided them even a launch system, and you can Google this. It's called the Club K, CLUB-K, and that will show you the launch systems with the container configuration that the Russians have given them. For Iran to put that container on a ship, a container ship, put it off 50 kilometers New York or the and launch what we call level nuclear explosion called EMP, electromagnetic pulse. You can Google all this and you'll find out that I have a lot of facts by Iran now is nuclear capable. So they've been able to have Russia do all the testing, North Korea do all the testing. So all they have to do is like a typically said, you know, you take the launch system, you take the command and control guide system, you put a warhead on it, and you know, even fissional material, you can buy that today, as well as development. Of course, that's what Iran has done. And so they couldn't link everybody to us saying, now, here, 10 years, we don't have it right now. And of course, our intelligence agents are so pathetic right now that we have Obama and Kerry signing this deal. And of course, Iran's very happy because they can get $150 billion for this that they can spend on anything they want. So it's really a joke.
Okay, we have another question. This is our co-director of the Lower Tea Party Caucus, Dan Benefield.
General, thank you for your service. Not to change the subject, but having been a leader in the greatest fighting force in U.S. history, what are your thoughts about the way the social engineers are changing the United States military in terms of weakening it in many ways, taking religious liberty away from military personnel? Just recently, We heard about women being added to the Special Ops Corps. What are your thoughts about what's happening in the United States military? And again, thank you for your service.
Well, they've done everything they can, and this course goes back to even Clinton times where he was the president, social engineering, the armed forces with Doug Ashton, Chow. We get into all the things on the male-female issues, the barracks, the training, and all of that. Of course, we've got two outstanding women from West Point who just graduated from the Ranger School. Now, I can tell you that social engineering does not belong in the military, and that was a big mistake going back. Bush should never change any of that. And so we let it continue. So again, I can tell you, we had women back in World War II that were serving in the military in many capacities. So I applaud women being part of our armed forces. I have no problem with that. Matter of fact, I sponsored one of the first females in the West Point. But there's so many skills and so many different categories within the military, from medical to infantry, artillery, armor to intelligence. The women can play a part in many of those. I think what's most fearful when you put women in a frontline battlefield condition. Having visited Korea several years ago, I saw what the South Koreans were doing in their special forces by bringing women into their special forces. Now, I have no problem with that because I took a woman with me into Syria 2.5 years ago, and women can play a very important part. Women sense things differently. When you come to intel analysis, what I call intelligence analysis, it's roles they can play, so I have no problem with that. And I applaud these two women from West Point who got through the lecture course. I graduated from Ranger School in 1961, and it's tough. It's one of the toughest schools that anybody can ever go to. So I think in that regards, women have always played a part. I don't call that social engineering, but the administrations have taken to the point of transgender individuals in the military. So we've got to take social engineering out of the military, but we have to have female participation in having the helicopter pilots. We have to find fighter jets. We have to do a lot of, so women are capable. It should be a part of our armed forces.
Okay, we have another question here.
General Vallely, I salute you as a fellow armed forces member in the past, and I was incredulous today as I viewed on television that Israel, they had a long list of people who think this Iranian nuclear deal is a good deal, and Israel was included in that list. And I'm curious as to what your take is on this. It seems like it's a political, governmental, or Obama presentation or promotion for the Iranian deal. Saying that Congress thinks it's a good deal, England thinks it's a good deal, and Israel thinks it's a good deal, and we think it's a good deal. What is your official take on that? Not official, but what is Israel's official or unofficial take on this according to your understanding?
Well, if you look at the United States, Jews that support Israel on this, they're good young dog. Fortunately, with the Stop Iran rally in New York was supported by over 50% of the organizations were Jewish organizations that were saying that the Iran deal was a bad deal. You have to understand Israeli politics. There's a lot of leftist socialists in Israeli politics. And so they're not leaning forward in the foxhole to support Bibi Netanyahu and the IDF commanders, Israeli Defense Force commanders, that realize of the threat to Israel. Israel's going through a lot of political scenarios and issues that we are in America. But hopefully Bibi Netanyahu and the generals and admirals of the Israeli Defense Forces are going to take action And I think if this deal is signed, by the way, by Obama with Iran, if he doesn't get it, and, comes a veto, that at least Israel will take the necessary actions, and I think they will militarily. I think if this deal goes through, Israel will take actions within the first 60 to 90 days to attack a number of Iranian targets, both the nuclear sites and what we call regime targets. They're about a 72-hour blitz.
Oh, there's, I'm going to come back over in front of the camera. There's a couple of things about that Corker agreement. One of them is that in the language of that agreement, Corker saw to it that the agreement would be in Farsi and in American. And what I was reading yesterday that the contracts don't agree. There's a lot, they're different. The Farsi contract is a lot worse than what we're being presented with the American language contract. So we're being lied to. And there's another provision, and I want your opinion on this, and then we're going to let you go and get to your family and folks. Is it true that in that agreement that there's a provision that we mentioned that Israel was going to more than likely attack Iran? But according to the language of that agreement, what I'm hearing is that if Israel attacks Iran and we automatically become enemies of Israel, we automatically, according to the language of that agreement, are no longer allies with Israel. Have you heard anything about that language in that agreement? It's probably not in the American language agreement, it's probably in the Farsi one.
Well, yeah, I have heard about that, and the question is, will we come to the support of Israel, or will we stay by some type of an agreement or deal with Iran? All I can tell you is Iran will do what it has to do to destroy Israel and then to destroy its other enemy, which is the United States. Now, Israel knows this, and so with whatever deal goes through, Israel will be prepared to take whatever action necessary to protect Israel. And Bibi Netanyahu and the IDF generals and admirals will make sure that happens. Even if Israel attacks Iran, we still have our fleets over there, which are being very much in jeopardy and at risk. But keep in mind, the fleet commanders have the authority to protect the fleets if they have to, despite what the White House may say. So they may be relieved afterwards, but the fleet commanders are basically given the authority to protect the American ships and the fleets in the Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf. So if this deal goes through, then we're going to see a whole different situation now between Israel and Iran. And Israel probably will take action to destroy their nuclear building.
Do you foresee, last question, do you foresee American intercepts of Israeli ICBMs toward Iran because of this agreement?
Well, certainly, with the capability that Iran has, the support of North Korea and Russia, they will have that capability through what we call the launch capability on land or by sea. So, from the standpoint of what the future holds for America is, then what will we do if that agreement goes through and then Israel launches any kind of attacks, and then, of course, Iran makes their attacks wherever in the Middle East or against America. But keep in mind, Iran and Russia are at great sense right now, and China is a third. And so if we don't have a strong military, if we don't lead, what Ronald Reagan said, peace through strength, then we will fail. And it's going to be a very difficult situation in America, as if we do not engage and become a strong supporter of democracy throughout the world and do something to support whatever allies we have left here. So it's critical that in the next election we put in the best president that we can, that will restore America to the republic that we know, restore confidence and respect it. And that's going to take a very strong presidential candidate to be assume that position and support the American people. And that's what I go back to, Dennis. The American people got to stand up and show their support that America is not going to take this sitting down, and we're going to protect our people, we're going to protect our cities, our counties, our states, and we're going to do it because we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to allow America to on as it has.
And I encourage our folks to go to the website, Stand Up America, Paul's website. It's good to go to, it's good to join, become a member. As we say goodnight, General Vallely, I would like to tell folks that while you're hearing this, we appreciate your sacrifice and your family's sacrifice. There's been personal tragedy in your family. You lost your son as he was training to go represent American interests. And that is what it is, and I don't want to dwell on that so much, but there's a serving, sacrificing family. Paul's wife's name is Muffin. Tell Muffin the Willow Run Tea Party Caucus says hi, and also tell her that we thank her for supporting you all these years and allowing you to be who you are.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that. I really follow that.
Yeah. And once again, thank you so much for being part of this. And we will schedule you again maybe once every 6 months or so.
Absolutely.
We appreciate your time. Folks, thank you, General.
Everybody in Michigan, Dan.
Yes. Good night, sir.